your source for everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para-X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. My guest tonight is Christopher Vasey, and he's a naturopath specializing in detoxification and rejuvenation. He's the author of several books, including The Acid Alkaline Diet for Optimal Health, Liver Detox, Natural Remedies for Inflammation, and the book that we're going to be talking about tonight, Natural Compresses and Poultices, Safe and Simple Folk Medicine, Treatments for 70 Common Conditions. Yes. And given the worldwide crisis that we're all having, I think we'll all have some questions about staying healthy, and we'll try to cover all bases as best I can. So, Christopher, welcome to the show.
Well, hello, Marla.
This is a wonderful topic and a perfect time to talk about these things. But I think let's begin with the basics. Compresses and poultices as healing modalities have been around forever, haven't they? Yeah. I was reading about the 5th century Hippocrates and, Galen, Galen Price, Galen, Prince of Medicine. And then we go back to Chinese medicine too. And that just kind of goes to show that throughout history, people have successfully been using compresses and poultices to cure their ills long before Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, right?
Yes, that's true. And because it's very effective, and it's also something very easy to use because you don't have to have very sophisticated medicines. It's using things which are readily available around you, like potatoes and onions and cold water, warm water, and so forth. So it's easy to use, to make, and it is quite effective. Maybe it cannot cure every illnesses, but it's a good complement to or backup of other treatments. In fact, it's used either just to relieve pain and suffering, so that's just relieving, it's not curing, or they can be also used to cure, like rheumatism, with the help of course, of other kind of treatments.
Mm-hmm. And, I was thinking about that as you're talking because going back so far in history and using compresses and poultices and everything, I think back then people were a lot smarter than we were about their health because they knew the things that they could use. We now in the 21st century are very spoiled. We look to pharmaceuticals, we look to other people. A lot of people don't know what works. Even simple folk medicine don't know. So I think this is really good to kind of take us back and enlighten us the way our ancestors lived, in a sense.
Yes, exactly. And they didn't have any knowledge of chemistry, but right. They could observe very well nature, and they could experiment with flowers and clay and different things, and they could feel intuitively what was happening. And they were also inspired by helpers from the beyond or nature beings. And they discovered many different things they could use in a simpler way. But since chemistry was developed a few centuries ago, everything is explained by chemistry. It's things that we do not see, which are very detailed, which are fragments of a reality. And it's the reason why the modern medicine remedies can be very effective, but have also many drawbacks. But with natural means, it is not the case. They're always very helpful, and very seldom is there any contraindications.
Mm-hmm. And I think, well, in the pagan world, and a lot of people that come on my show, they're into herbs, they're into the botanicals. In some ways, we're kind of going back to that because we realize that it's a lot safer than synthetic things that we put into our bodies that we don't know are going to have an effect maybe 20 years down the line. But if, you bite into an herb that's kind of bitter already, there's a little warning there. I mean, it may not be bad for you, but at least, the red flag goes up. This is bitter. This may not be good. So I really think that it's almost like everything old is new again. People are kind of getting back to basics, don't you think?
Yes, I do, yeah. And when you think of it, many modern remedies are only copies of remedies which existed before, like plants, herbs, and remedies. Like many of them are just copies, chemical copies of what has been found in herbs. So it's quite incredible, but even big pharmaceutical firms send people in the forest in Brazil or any different places, and they try to gather plants which then they know are working well against inflammation or rheumatism or that and that, and they take them back to the laboratory and they analyze them, and then they try to find the substances, active substances and curative substances, and then they copy them to produce them in great quantities. But the problem with that is that it can help, but it's only one molecule of the plants. And in a plant, there are many different molecules which work together to cure such and such an illness. So when you take a plant, you've got all of those molecules. When you take a chemical remedy, you've got only one or two. So the effect is not so harmonious on the body.
That makes good sense. I didn't think about that, but yeah. So what is the difference between a compress and a poultice? Now, I remember growing up, whenever I had a fever, my grandmother would say, well, I'm going to go get you a cold compress. And it was basically cool water. She wasn't into poultices, but I think people might be confused a little bit about the difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, a compress is a piece of cloth which has been soaked in water or any other liquids, and then folded several times, and then placed on the ailing part of the body. So basically, it's a cloth with more or less water, which covers a big or small area of the body, and so forth. But a poultice is something different. It's a paste-like preparation. So it's more solid, and it's applied on the skin. And it can be made with vegetables like potatoes, cabbage, onions, carrots, or fruits, lemon, peaches, ice cubes, clay, and so forth. So poultices are something more solid, and the paste is made with something which has some virtues. But with the compressors, it's water, cold or warm water, or lukewarm water in between, in a cloth, and applied then on the body.
Because we always heard growing up, I mean, I did, there were people when they came up with an upper respiratory infection or something, they would put on a mustard plaster on their chest. And I guess that would be considered a poultice, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And the idea is that mustard is quite aggressive, so it would attack the skin, and the skin will react to this aggression by bringing a lot of blood in the surface, in the skin, above the lungs. And therefore, this to fight against the aggression. And therefore, this blood, which comes from the lungs, will take with it toxins which are down in the lungs and bring them to the surface. And this is the reason it has a curative effect. But to understand that completely, one has to say that for natural medicine, the basic nature of illnesses is an accumulation of toxins in the internal environment, what is also called the terrene. That is all the liquids which surround the cells. And there is an ideal composition of this liquid which gives us health, the cells, the organs can work very well. But now this means that any alteration of this composition will bring illnesses because the organs cannot function well anymore. And one of the great causes of this change of composition is an accumulation of toxins. When our body works, it produces waste products, which are called toxins, like uric acid, urea, and so forth. And it's normal that we have a little bit of those toxins. But when, depending on the way people live, these toxins can not be eliminated daily, but only partly. So therefore, they will accumulate in the body, and that's what makes the organs ill. Because, I've got to explain it in length, because the toxin will accumulate in the blood, and the blood will become thicker. And nowadays, many people are taking remedies to fluidify their blood because it's too thick with toxins. And the toxins can then deposit on the blood vessel walls. When the blood goes through the liver or the kidney, it drops toxins in the liver and toxins in the liver, so they cannot work as well anymore. And these toxins can create an inflammation, a sclerosis, and so forth. So that's the idea. In natural medicine, an accumulation of toxin is the reason for many illnesses. So the way to cure these illnesses is to get rid of those toxins. And there are 5 organs in the body which can eliminate them. It's the liver, which eliminates the toxins in the bile, the intestines in the stools, and the kidneys in the urine, the skin when we sweat, and the lungs when we breathe out. And so one of the organs which can eliminate toxin is the skin, and compressors and poultices act on the skin. So that's why one of the reasons also why compressors and poultices are so effective. They can help us eliminate more toxins, get them out of the body. As soon as the internal environment has fewer toxins, it's much healthier. So pain can be disappear, and so forth. All sorts of symptoms can disappear. The person will feel much better.
Yeah, and you talk about that these poultices and compresses work in a variety of ways. So yes, they can be used as first aid, as for acute illness, as well as chronic pain and aches and all kinds of things. So they're really, really very important, I think. I mean, because you're able to draw out the poisons, the toxins, to some degree. And how often should people detox or try and do this? Or actually, first, let's talk about the physiological terrain. We kind of did. But I think people need to know a little bit more about that to explore it.
Yes. Well, the internal terrain is all those liquids which are in the body, and put all together represent 70% of the weight of the body. It's the liquids, the cellular fluids, which are inside the cells, which represent half of our body weight. And it's the liquid which is around the cells, which represent 15% of the body weight. And then the blood, the lymph, also 5%. And these liquids constitute the environment of the cell. It's the same thing as we have to have an environment with fresh air, pure water, and so forth to be able to live. And our cells have to have pure cellular fluids around them and inside them to be able to be in a healthy state. And as I said before, there's an ideal composition of this internal or those liquids, and which gives us health and resistance and makes us able to fight against infections in a good, effective way. But when we accumulate toxins, then the picture is totally reversed. Our body doesn't function well. The organs become sluggish and illnesses can appear. So basically in natural medicine, the idea is to not try and cure on the surface, but to get rid of as many toxins we can by stimulating the liver, the kidney, the skin by different means, like kidney and liver by taking herbs, medicinal herbs, which stimulate those organs, like rosemary or dandelion for the liver, and also, in fact, for the kidneys. And by taking these plants regularly for 1 or 2 months, these organs will eliminate much more toxins than usual, than they did just before, and therefore the quantity of toxins will diminish in the internal environment, and the cells will become healthy again.
And they all rejuvenate at some point, right?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, when the cells are surrounded by clear, pure liquids, cellular fluids, they can work well, regenerate, acquire more strength to do their work. Just the opposite, when toxins are there, they become tired, poisoned partly by those toxins, and of course they become weaker and weaker. So it's in natural medicine, it's a lot question of detoxifying, that is getting rid of all the toxins which are in the body. And nowadays there are many toxins in our body because most people, not everybody, but most people, because they overeat. People overeat. So what is not used is the body tries to eliminate, but it cannot eliminate everything because the liver, kidneys get tired of all those toxins to eliminate. So the toxins stay in the body, with the consequence that the person will become ill. And it's a very simple way of seeing things. It has been criticized nowadays by doctors because they say, well, it's a bit too simple and all. But it has been a conception of medicine and which has been effective through 2,000 or 3,000 years. And there's no reason it should stop because our body is just built in the same way as it was in the past.
Well, it could stop if we realized that, way back then, people didn't have all these poisons that they were taking into their systems, whether it's through medicine or food additives or, synthetic,
tobacco,
whatever.
Yeah.
So they were healthier before, and this is why the natural method helped even more. So in essence, we need to try harder now to get rid of those toxins because we're actually polluting ourselves unnecessarily, but overdoing it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. We've got to try to get rid of the toxins which are already in the body, but we should also make an effort so that not too many toxins come in the body in the first place. And that is by eating healthy, natural foods. Because the foods that nature gives us gives a few toxins, that's for sure, but not too many, not dangerous ones. If you eat fruits, vegetables, cereals, and so forth, there are a few toxins, but it's normal. That's not dangerous. But the foods, the fake foods from which you get a lot of toxins, are those made by human beings. That is, for example, white sugar, and all the foods which are full of white sugar, that gives a lot of toxins. It's also all the fats, this high quantity of fat we eat, and which you find in all kind of foods. That's also a source of many toxins. Eating so much, how do you say that? Sorry, meat. Nowadays, some people eat more meat than vegetables. That's not normal. Yeah, like you were talking about your youth. 60 years ago or 70, I don't know how old you are. People used to eat meat once or twice a week, or when they killed a pig, well, they ate more and then no meat first sometimes. So it was not very high in proteins from meats. But nowadays, some people eat meat twice a day. So that's much too much, and it gives a lot of toxins. And in addition to that, there are all the poisons, chemical poison we put in the foods, the food additives, which some of them are harmless, but some are dangerous, and it's known, but nevertheless they are used. And also the heavy metals from pollution. People take a lot of chemical remedies without them being really necessary, and so forth. Tobacco, alcohol, and all that. All those things give toxins and toxics, and they accumulate in our internal environment and make us ill. So there's only one solution. It's to come back to a more natural and physiological life by eating foods which nature has prepared for us to eat.
Yeah, I mean, we know that years ago people died sooner, but I think mostly, and correct me if I'm wrong, mostly they would die of infection, not of all these things that we're putting ourselves through and making it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't have antibiotics. And when antibiotics came in, things were a lot better. But then, go ahead, sorry.
And antibiotics came in the 1925 or 30, something like that. So it's quite new. But in the past, they didn't have antibiotics. But they had an immune system which can fight against the microbes. And many people were healthy enough to fight against the microbes, and they survived different infections. Some didn't, of course, and they died. But nowadays, with the use of antibiotics, people who should have or who would have died because their internal terrain was too full of toxins can go on living. And they say, it's fine, I don't have my pneumonia anymore, I'm cured. And they, instead of thinking, I had too many toxins, I've got to be careful now, I've got to detox and then eat healthy, they don't know anything about that because they're not told so by the doctor. So they go on living as they did before. So they will have another infection very easily because when an internal terrain is full of toxins, the microbes are very, very happy. They can multiply and give a big infection. So, but with antibiotics, these people will always cure their infections, and therefore the level of toxin in the body will increase more and more, and then they will come to the chronic and degenerative illnesses. And nowadays, people die of chronic illnesses or degenerative illnesses because they, in majority, because we don't make those acute illnesses when an infection. Because when the body fights an infection, it will work hard to get rid of all the toxins, to reorganize things, harmonize things, and the person who comes out of an infection can feel much better than before because his internal terrain is much healthier.
And we're using some people are using the antibiotics as a crutch rather than wanting to make a change of lifestyle. Well, I won't worry because I can do that, but antibiotics also will mess with your immune system, and as you said, it won't allow the immune system to function the way it was brought to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it weakens the immune system, and it stops the elimination of the burning of the toxins during fever, because fever burns a lot of toxins and eliminate them, but this doesn't take place. So there's a lot of problems which arise. But I don't mean we should never use antibiotics, because sometimes to save the life of someone, well, it's good to use them. But the normal, the way full of wisdom we should follow is to then think, well, I'm in a bad state, I'm going to detox, I'm going to eat, I'm going to live in a more healthy way. But of course, it's more effort than taking pills.
I was going to say we're lazy.
Yeah.
And some people, honestly, don't, to be fair, they don't understand that they can make a difference because they weren't brought up knowing that
No.
people
Yeah.
live healthy lifestyles and, shun things that they think are bad for them. So it's upbringing. I mean, my grandmother back in her day, I mean, she would always shop at the health food store. We didn't have white sugar. We didn't have white flour in the house. Honey was her sweetener kind of thing, maybe brown sugar once in a while.
You must be
And
very healthy.
well, I hope so. But then I grew up and, kind of fell into that pattern that other people
Yeah.
are following as well. But, I mean, there have always been people that kind of knew it. But again, we get lazy. Well, yeah, okay, well, we can do this and we can not do that. But boy, it's not fun if we stop doing this, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There has to be kind of a happy medium. And I think once people get to that place where they can see both sides, the good and the bad. And even you don't have to jump into it with both feet immediately and just give up everything. But you can slowly work into it. And I think as you do and you start feeling better, you're more inclined to follow the healthy path.
Yeah, exactly. By experiencing the good effects, then people are motivated to do more, to go further, and so forth. But many people have the wrong idea that eating healthy is not good, not tasty, not good.
Oh.
But it's not true because, of course, nature has produced foods which are good for us, and in order for us to eat them, they must have a good taste. Otherwise, we would not eat them. So the best we can find for our body is what nature gives us. And people who are used to eat a lot of fatty food and sweet foods full of white sugar, at the beginning they feel a bit unsettled because it's different eating healthy. But if they eat in a healthy way for a month or so, and then they switch back to the bad foods, they will say, oh no, yeah, that's not so good. In fact, natural food is better. But you've got to work on the good foods direction for a certain number of weeks before you can notice, well, eating those sweets, those chocolate, those things which are so sweet is not good, or too fat and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard people, lots of people that have tried that. Well, I would never have tried that before, but oh my God, I'm not putting a caramel dip on my apple. I'm just eating a real apple and it tastes so good, kind of thing. It's like a whole epiphany that
exactly.
people don't realize how you do that. And it's also cooking with herbs. I mean, you can take something very bland and very healthy. Even let's take tofu, for example. I mean, everybody, I hate tofu. It doesn't taste like anything. You can make a wonderful sauce. You can make a stew with it. You can make a soup with it. And the tofu is like our skin. It absorbs things and it absorbs the flavor. But because somebody once said, well, no, tofu is just bleh, try things. Get out there and try. And you'd be very surprised at how good things really are that we never knew about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many different layers to this, but the bottom line is that we need to start feeling healthy. We need to start doing something instead of complaining about how bad we feel, because the healthy lifestyle, it goes across the board. And one thing I think we mentioned before, it can relieve pain, and people don't maybe understand that. Maybe they can understand how to get their cholesterol down, how to get their blood pressure down and this, but it actually can help relieve pain. And that, I think, is probably one of the number one complaints in this country, that people have pain.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
And the compressors and poultices can help to relieve pain. And to do this, the best way is to use compressors which are cold, because the colds the compress which is cold, which you put on the body, will kind of anesthetize the sensitive nerves, and the pain can disappear quite quickly. It's an anti-symptomatic. It doesn't act on the cause, but it's a way of relieving the pain very quickly. So if, for example, someone has headaches, and could put some some cold compress on the front of his head, or on the nape of his how do you call that? Let me see.
The nape of the neck.
Nape of the neck. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
They can help the blood circulation in the head to go more. Well, it will slow down in the beginning, and then it will accelerate. And a lot of toxins which are in the blood vessel in the head will be sweat. The toxin will be sweat and carried away by the blood, which circulates more quickly, and it can relieve pain. Also, if someone has been stung by a bee or another insect, if you take a cube of ice and you put it on it, the pain is relieved straight away.
Yeah.
And it's simple, effective. Everybody probably has ice cube in his fridge. And it can be used like that. Or when someone has hemorrhoids and it's an acute attack, it's quite painful. If you take an ice cube and you can put it directly on the spot, which is very sensitive and painful,
Yes.
and it will melt, of course, but the cold will anesthetize the region, and the pain will be relieved. But also the inflammation will be calmed, so it's also curative. But of course, in such a situation, there's more to do than just putting ice cubes. But it's the first aids, the first thing you can do before you have a doctor or medicine to help you. Or if you're far away from everything and you don't have a doctor and remedies, you can use that, and it's a very good way of relieving the pain.
Yes. So, Christopher, how do we get rid of all the gunk? I mean, is there like once a week, once a month? How often do we, can we, or should we?
I think it's good to follow a cure for 1 month, for example, or 2 months, depends how many. If someone is very full of toxins, 2 months, and to take medicinal herbs first, which are stimulating the liver, for example, and the kidneys, those two, and to take them on a regular basis every day for those 4 or 8 weeks. And therefore, a whole lot of toxin will go out of the body, and the internal terrain will become much cleaner, and the person will feel much better and probably got rid of different ailments. But then the person can have a break, and then 2 or 3 months later start again, and so forth, until they have found a good health again. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
It's better not to try and stimulate the 5 excretory organs at the same time, but to choose 1 or 2 and to work hard on those, and then work with others. So we talk about liver and kidneys, but maybe the next time it will be to sweat a lot very regularly, take saunas or hot baths, or go for sports with heavy, with clothes on, many clothes on, I mean, so that the person will sweat a lot, and there are a lot of toxins which can come out of the body.
Can people, I mean, some of us are, well, we all have toxins, but some people are so used to feeling the way we feel that we might not realize how badly we are kind of gunked up. So how would we kind of know?
Well, someone who has too many toxins will have different ailments, maybe pimples or eczema on the skin, because when the body has too much toxins, it tries to get rid of them by the liver, kidneys, and so forth, and the skin. So it can be pimples or eczema, or if they are thrown out of the respiratory tract, the person will always be blowing his nose, have bronchitis or expectorating, but without infection, just the respiratory conducts are clogged with toxins. And it can, if there are toxins in the joints, well, the person will have a pain in the joints and so forth. So if someone has different kind of ailments, but not even very strong, but some, it means he has toxins and he can detoxify. It will be good for him.
And I want to mention, because we're talking about doing this, doing that, but in the book, step by step, you talk about preparation, you talk about application, you talk about duration, you talk about frequency, and you also talk about cautions when need be. So, I'm just saying that we are giving everybody a generality of what they should do, but to actually do it hands-on, the book is an amazingly wonderful way and easy to know how to do these types of things. So I just wanted to bring that up in case people are saying, well, they're not explaining it now. Yeah. Well, no, but boy, the book is full of it. So we should do that.
Well, in fact, the book on the compresses and poultices are ways of detoxifying very locally, not too generally. Up to now, I've talked mostly about general detoxifying, and I've written another book which is called Detox something. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. Detox, where it says exactly how you can stimulate the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the intestines, and the lungs to eliminate. But that's another book, Detox. And in this book, Compresses and Poultices, it's ways of getting rid of toxins when there's a acute illness, pains, and so forth. But it's very local. But it works very well, but it's two different things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We start with the easy one, maybe, which is the natural compresses and poultices. Yeah. And then, once you do that, you kind of work your way up into it. Now, I think because of the troubled times that we're in right now, let's talk a little bit about what's on people's minds. And one of that important thing that they're thinking about, we're all worried about, is building up our immune systems, because, we hear that it's one of the measures that can assist in fighting this virus or everything else for that matter. So what do you suggest for building up an immune system?
Well, the immune system is, it's not just an idea, it's different organs in the body which produces the lymphocytes, the small soldiers which attack the microbes and kill them. And these organs are the spleen, for example, the lymphatic nodes, they are the pia something, I don't know in English, because I'm in Switzerland, you didn't mention it.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in Switzerland. So sometimes I lack one word or another. And the different tonsils and so forth, they are different, and the bone marrow, which produce those lymphocytes, those small soldiers of the immune system. But now these organs are, as the liver or the heart or the joints, they are in an internal terrain which is good or bad. If it's bad, then the immune system will be weaker, not as effective, will have a trouble producing also lymphocytes. If the internal terrain is in order, that is without toxins, the immune system will be very powerful. And there's something interesting also, it is that to fight the microbes, there are two things. First, the immune system which attack, it's a war against the microbes, but there's also the internal terrain in itself. If it's healthy, pure, without toxins and so forth, when a microbe comes into it, because we breathe the microbe or it comes through with the food and so forth, it comes in a terrain which is so healthy that they can have great difficulties surviving. It's not the type of environment they like. What they like is an internal environment which is full of toxins coming from white sugar, grease, fats, and so forth. Mm-hmm. So when microbes come, they come in a terrain if the terrain is healthy, they will be killed, most of them. And if it's not all of them, then the immune system attacks. So in fact, we're very well protected, but we don't have a good internal terrain. So both of those systems are weaker than they should be.
So one of the things that I was saying that also affects the immune system is anxiety and nervous tension. And there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So first of all, I read in the book about an ice cube poultice. So let's talk about that, please. And then maybe some other ideas.
Yeah, they have made different experiences carried out different experiences to see the effect of strong emotion on the immune system. And it was very clear that if someone has a big shock or is very afraid or has a bad news and so forth, or is frustrated because of it, can weaken the immune system for several hours, 5 or 6 hours. But in our daily life, there are many deceptions and frights and so forth. And when there's an epidemic, the person is frightened and anxious constantly, so the immune system is much lower than weaker than it should be. So to relax, there are a poultice with ice cubes. You take 5 or 6 ice cubes, you put them in a small piece of a towel, and then you lay it on the solar plexus. Mm-hmm. And it's quite cold, of course. At the beginning, you feel, well, it's a bit too cold. But after a while, you can feel that it will relax you, and your whole body will relax. And after a while, the blood will be brought to the solar plexus to try and warm it, and you feel well and relaxed. And it's a way of relaxing for an hour or so. That's one way of doing it.
Okay. Any other suggestions as well?
To relax.
Mm-hmm.
With poultice, with compresses, if, for example, you take a piece of cloth big enough to put all around the abdomen, your lungs and stomach, around your body. And first you put it in cold water, and then you wrung out some of the water so it's not full of water. And then you put it all around your body, and then you cover yourself with something to keep warm. And then at the beginning it's cold, so the blood will go away from the skin, so that the blood in the skin will not get too cold too quickly and then cool the whole body. But then the body cannot go on living with this cold skin for very long, so the body will send blood in the region, and a lot of blood will come, and it will have a soothing effect and relaxing effect.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many. I'm just looking through the book, and there are so many things. I mean, at the end of the book, there's the directory of compresses and poultices, and there's so many compresses like beeswax, birch leaf, chamomile, essential oils. A lot of my listeners use essential oils a lot. Yeah. Hot ones, cold ones. I mean, it's amazing. Even like St. John's wort oil and vinegar water. And then you have the poultices, which, and this just made me laugh, but under poultices, I see cabbage leaf, and now I'm thinking of stuffed cabbage. We're going to turn ourselves into a stuffed cabbage. But even cottage cheese. Now, okay, this one I need to ask you. Yeah. What is cottage cheese used for in a poultice?
Well, it's used, for example, when it's cottage cheese you take out of the fridge, so it's cold. Mm-hmm. And it's to put on the skin when the skin is too warm. For example, when someone has a sunburn, the skin is burned by the sun, mm-hmm. and it's all red and it's painful. And to help the skin get healthy, to cure the condition of the skin, mm-hmm. one has to bring cold to get rid of all the heat which is in the skin. And putting something cold, it could be something else than cottage cheese. But cottage cheese is one way of doing it. And so the cold will take out the warmth, and the person will feel better at the skin level. But there are probably also different substances in the cottage cheese which have a soothing effect on the skin. And so both are working in the same direction.
Okay, I like that. I mean, and all of these things that you have, everybody's got them in the house. I mean, you have garlic, you have lemons, you have mustard powder, onions, potatoes. And that reminds me of something about onions or something similar. A few years ago, people were going because they said that they had these poultices that you would put on the bottom of the soles of your feet, and it would draw out the toxins. And many people thought that was just wonderful and marvelous, and they did it. But then a lot of information came out saying that didn't work, and these were not, things that you should really work. Can you talk about that? Because, I mean, that technically is a foot poultice, but why did people first embrace it and then say it didn't work? Was it the people that were making it that were just putting placebos in or something?
No, I don't know. What were they made with?
I don't remember, no. but something about onion something, but there were...
It can be cabbage, it can be clay, it can be onions. But let's talk about clay and cabbage.
Okay.
They have an absorbent action. That is, they have a powerful property of sucking the toxins out of the tissues through the skin. They draw out the toxin from the tissues through the skin to the outside. And it works very well. If you take clay and mix water with it, natural clay, not with special chemicals for pottery and so forth, but natural clay, you mix it with water and you put some, when it's it should not be running, but it must be solid enough to stay when you put it on the skin. And you put a layer, first half inch, but then an inch, and then 2 inches with time. It will, when it dries, it will pull out the toxins which are inside the tissues. And you can see it very easily if someone has an abscess, there is pus in it. You put such a poultice and the abscess will empty itself. Or if you put such a poultice on a painful joint, the pain will be weakened, because the toxins responsible of the inflammation and therefore of the pain will be carried out of the body. So and the same thing can be done with cabbage leaves. Several layers of cabbage leaves on the skin, on the area which is painful or which has a problem, and it will draw out the toxins and the person will feel better. But you need to do several running. Well, it's all explained in the book, but one is already a help, but then it's also, you've got to repeat in time to get deeper effect.
So when you would put a poultice on like that to draw out, like we began talking about the bottom of the foot, but when you're trying to pull something out, it depends on what you're trying to achieve as to what area of the body that you apply the poultice?
Yeah, well, usually you put it where it hurts or there's a problem. But I forgot, we started with the poultice under the foot. It's an area which has a lot of bloods, of veins. And therefore, if you put a poultice here, there are more veins in the sole of the foot than in other areas. So if you put a poultice of clay, for example, there's a lot of bloods from which toxins can be drawn out. So you detoxicate more than if it's on another place on the body. And therefore, it will purify the bloods, and the blood goes in the whole body, and the whole body will benefit of it. And if at the beginning people use it and talk about it, it's because someone has wanted to give the information. And very usually what happens is that after some doctor or something, they say it's not proven that that really works, you shouldn't use it, or it's a waste of money and so forth. And well, it's opinion against opinion. But people who apply clay poultice or cabbage poultice, well, they can experience that it works. And as we said, it's old medicine. It's several thousand years. And by this time, we've got enough experience to say, yes, it works for sure.
Well, a lot of things work, and people are kind of naysayers, or they're afraid to try something. And, I mean, these things are so easy. Like, all right, here, there's a thing about a hangnail or a nail infection. And I don't know if you're talking about fungus or maybe just, like you pull a hangnail and you get a thing. But it's simple, a cabbage leaf poultice on that, and organic Savoy cabbage. And everybody can find that.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I mean, things like that. Or you have an onion poultice or potato poultices here. And the book covers all the regions of the body as well. You're not going to pick it up and say, well, what do I do now? Because first you talk about what compresses and poultices are. Why are they so effective? Then you talk about the skin and effects of the different areas. I mean, we go top to bottom, from head to toe, and everywhere in between. I mean, the eye. Here's a thing for a black eye or a toothache. Everybody gets toothaches, and so I'm looking up and down the list. I don't think there's anything that you missed as far as body parts or organs, which is really good. And even like Charlie horses. Okay, as people get older or they're very athletic, they get cramps, and Charlie horses. And people stand up and start walking around and limping and cursing and eventually it goes away. But, you tell them an easy way to do that. I mean.
And I've tried to be very practical, telling what kind of material you should need, how to prepare it, how to lay it, how thick, how long, how cold, how warm, and everything, so that people who are starting have the instructions. They just follow and they experience the thing, and they can feel, yes, I should leave it a bit longer, or it should be a bit colder, and so forth. And they get experience. They get to be experts in it. And they learn also the way the body functions. It makes people more aware. One hears very often one should listen to what our body tells us. And when we are ill, it's telling us something. We should detox, for example. But when we use compresses and poultices, we can feel also, the body will say longer, shorter, well, you feel well or unwell suddenly, so you've got to stop and so forth.
Well, that's the thing. You get to learn to know your body. Sometimes we ignore it. A lot of people don't. I mean, I worked in a medical office for a lot of years, and when you would ask somebody, where does it hurt, or can you give me your symptoms? They would go, I don't know. It just hurts, and unfortunately, a lot of people are like that. Well, where does it hurt? I don't know. I just don't feel good, So by getting in touch with your body and doing these things, it'll tell you what it needs and how to do it. And oh my God, such a much better life, much easier life to live. So, yeah. But what isn't easy is this hour goes by really, really quickly. And no matter how much we try to talk fast and get everything in, it doesn't work. So before we have to get out of here, could you please give out your website so everybody can find out more about you, your books, your CDs, videos? There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I've got a website, and the address is my name. It's Christopher Vasey. Well, Christopher at the end, P-H-E-R. And then Vasey, V-A-S-E-Y. And then .ch. I'm in Switzerland, and the initials, it's C-H. So Christopher Vasey in one word, .ch. And on the website, I present my books, There's the content of the books. There are articles on the subject of the book. There are a few English videos. There's also a few free books which are not sold anymore,
Yes.
which are free to download and so forth. There's a lot to read and discover.
Yeah, I was going to mention the free downloads because that's, it gets people started, gets people interested, and it's a very interesting website. And everybody should go there. But, this book is one that we need to keep on our shelves because we don't always have access to things that we need. And it's all here, and you don't have to run out to the store to buy things because 90% of everything we have is right here in your counter, your pantry.
Yep.
So I really want to thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can have you back and talk about more specific things or maybe detox and rejuvenation, purely
Yes.
that.
Very well,
Because
I would be glad to do that, yeah.
Good, and now we've figured out Skype, we're good.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right, so again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having invited me. It was very pleasant to talk about all those subjects.
And very informative too. So I think you're going to get a whole bunch of fans once we put this podcast up and everybody gets to see it. And speaking of the audience, I want to thank everybody for being here as well, as always. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.